Yeah.
That is our legal counsel, Mr. Lloyd Bwalya, to discuss categorization of Zambian and non-Zambian applicant fees. Just confirm that his sound is okay.
Thank you for having me, and I hope that I'm audible enough. I hope that the viewers are able to get me.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay. So to start with, can you explain who is considered a Zambian and who qualifies as a non-Zambian under HPCZ regulations?
Okay, let me start off by just saying that this is a topical issue. And because it's a topical issue, we are happy to be part of the conversation so that we are able to clarify the questions. Let me also mention that being Zambian or being called Zambian is a status of nationality. It's an identity that you carry everywhere you go. And therefore, it's synonymous or identical to the status of being a citizen. Now, citizenship itself is regulated or provided for under the Constitution. I'm sure that everybody is aware, and for those that are interested, you can check the Constitution under Part 4 of that Constitution. It talks about citizenship and how you acquire it, and who is considered a citizen. So basically, the major difference is that for a person to be called Zambian, they must identify themselves as a citizen of Zambia. And for a person who is considered non-Zambian, it then goes without saying that they are in fact not a Zambian citizen, but could be a citizen of another place or jurisdiction.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why do registration and licensing fees differ between Zambian and non-Zambian applicants?
Well, it's a very good question, and I think, in my view, let me just mention that our fees are prescribed fees, meaning that we are given these as a statutory instrument by the legislators who then give us this document that we implement. So in the manner that they prescribe these fees, they within their wisdom identified that we need to treat Zambians who are citizens differently in terms of paying fees from non-Zambians. And I suppose that from the interaction that we have had, it is mainly because Zambians were seen as people who should be able to enjoy certain benefits by virtue of them being Zambian. And by benefit, I mean that they are seen as eligible to being given a subsidized rate, so that as we are attending to them, they're given a fair advantage in terms of being part and parcel of the job market. But also, you realize that for non-Zambians, HPCZ goes an extra mile in making sure that they meet the requirements. And by extra mile, I mean that there are certain quality assessments and checks that administratively have to be done for purposes of assessing their suitability to join our market. That costs money. And so in that fee, theirs is cost reflective, while Zambian is subsidized. And cost reflective means that it accounts for the amount of money, time spent in assessing their qualifications, assessing their suitability from where they come from. The last thing we want is for a non-Zambian to come into our space, and then we have no idea where they came from. We don't know whether their qualifications are genuine, and so we have to go an extra mile, which is reflected in their cost.
Okay. So for individuals with dual citizenship, how does HPCZ then determine which category applies to them when it comes to payment of fees?
Right. Again, dual citizenship is an advent that was brought about by the Constitution, and basically it recognizes that you could be a citizen of two countries, one or two countries, but then it does not equate to you renouncing your citizenship. Let me give you an example of what used to happen before 2016, when the Constitution was amended. Is that the moment you decided, their colleagues and people who relocated and would have gained citizenship, say of the UK, the moment you decide to take up citizenship of another country, it automatically meant that you renounce your identity as Zambian by way of citizenship. And so with the global village that we are in, which is the way the world is viewed now, it was felt that we needed to progress and therefore introduce dual citizenship. This means now that if you decided to become citizen of another country, to identify yourself as, maybe a Zimbabwean, you qualified there and you wanted to subscribe to the benefits that would accrue to you as a Zimbabwean, then you need not renounce your citizenship as a Zambian. What you do is you merely acquire the citizenship of Zimbabwe, and you can have both citizenships as yours, provided also that the country where you are becoming, you're allowed to do that. So that's the advent of citizenship. Now, to answer your question, is that with the explanation that I have given, it's clear that you have still, you remain a Zambian national and therefore a citizen. So all the benefits that would otherwise accrue to you as enumerated under Article 42 of the Constitution, you still have the right to access them, including being considered as Zambian by HPCZ.
Okay. All right. Earlier, you explained who is considered a Zambian and who qualifies as a non-Zambian.
Yeah.
But then would like to know what specific documents or proof of nationality should applicants provide to HPCZ that will determine whether they are Zambian or non-Zambian?
Right. Okay. Good question again. And I think we can start it from, down below that. I'm sure that those of us that are listening all know that for you to be said to be a Zambian, they usually ask for NRC, which is the National Registration Card. And for Zambians specifically, I think this is the one that has stroke 1 at the end and appears green in color. So we hear of issues bring a green national registration card. It's because even national registration cards have different colors depending on your status, whether you're merely resident or whatever the categorization would be. But there are different colors of national registration cards. And so for purposes of identity as a citizen, we require that it's green. But there are times where you may not have that NRC with you at that point, but you still need to evidence your nationality. In that case, we have recourse to a passport. And a Zambian issued passport, it identifies in that passport whether you're Zambian or not. And I think that those two documents are critical for purposes of identification in our case.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you. So when you submit a passport, does the validity matter also?
Yes. In fact, the passport has to be valid because the passport expires. Thank you for that question. For the NRC, it does not expire, and so you have it perpetually unless you lose it, and there are procedures for you to be able to replace it. But it has to be a valid passport, and so you can be identified as such.
All right. Thank you, Counsel, for that able response. My next question would be that sometimes we have practitioners trained abroad, but holding Zambian citizenship. They get confused about their category. Can you clarify how HPCZ handles such cases?
Okay, studied abroad, but as Zambian. They come from here and decide to go and study in Ukraine or Russia, or indeed China or any other country. I think we have many of those, and this is our opportunity to clarify. It's that from where we started the conversation from, you realize that when you're Zambian, unless you renounce your citizenship, you still remain Zambian forever, even if you went to any other place. And you could still get citizenship of that other place and still remain Zambian. So basically, the simple answer is that you still remain Zambian for purposes of consideration. What may be different is that you may need to evidence to us that your qualifications are genuine and that they meet the standard. But that you need to go to other bodies like the Zambia Qualifications Authority to obtain extra documentation. But once you bring all those things to us, the fee that applies to you is that of a Zambian national or indeed citizen.
Okay, great. What about foreign trained practitioners who are married to Zambians or have permanent residence? Does that affect their fee category in any way?
Unfortunately, the immediate answer is no, that it doesn't. So marriage alone is not what would qualify you or disqualify you from being Zambian. I think that what would is exactly what we have discussed, which is that either you've acquired citizenship, and there are different ways of acquiring citizenship. You'll notice that from Part 4 of the Constitution, It talks about the fact that you can acquire citizenship by either birth, descent, registration, or adoption. And one key one is that if you are not Zambian, you are able to come in, get married to a Zambian, but that will not automatically qualify you to be Zambian. There is a qualification, however, that you are eligible to be registered as a citizen under the Constitution, and indeed by extension under the Citizenship Act, that after 5 years of being married to a Zambian, you're eligible to apply to be registered before the Citizenship Board under the Citizenship Act. But you could be registered as a Zambian if you meet the requirements. So of course there's an application procedure and all those things that you have to submit before that authority. And then you could be registered as a Zambian. And so the simple answer is no, you're not. But the long one is that it's possible for you to change your status by virtue of marriage, in the manner that I have explained it.
Great. Okay. So how does this categorization of Zambian and non-Zambian tie into the broader regulatory mandate of HPCZ to ensure fairness and compliance in the health sector?
Okay, so the broader mandate is that, firstly, HPCZ is set up to be able to offer quality assurance. So the members of the public must be assured that the services that are being provided in the health sector are of good quality, are a quality that is able to meet their need and demand. And every person residing in Zambia, not only citizens, deserves to have access to quality health services. And so it's important for us to be able to ensure that the practitioners that we're admitting onto our registers are firstly quality checked in relation to how qualified they are. In addition to that, we need to quality check them in relation to their capacity to practice. And I'll give you an example. Sometimes there could be a practitioner who's adequately qualified and they have everything on paper, but they may not probably be able to communicate in the languages that we speak. And so we are interested in making sure that before we give someone a license to go and practice, they are checked in all manner of ways, such that once they are seated on the desk like this, presenting themselves as a health practitioner, then the member of the public who is seated on the other side of the desk is able to have confidence that this person, having had been registered by the council, is a person fit enough to offer me a quality service. And so the categorization fits in well, as I mentioned earlier, especially in relation to our extent of quality assurance in relation to non-Zambians, which then justifies the fee. But for Zambians, it also sits in well because what we want is to support the government in its vision for universal health coverage. And so we're giving Zambians a fair advantage to be able to access a subsidized rate so that they join the workforce in the health sector. They're able to be sent out to even the most remote of areas to be able to go and give a benefit of health to the members of those communities. I think that's how we fit into the broader perspective.
Council, finally.
Maybe if I could add before we finalize, that in relation to registration, remember we touched on those who are married who may have concerns as to whether their status changes immediately. And I think that we've ably discussed that, unless there would be questions. But I also want to mention that there are those who are residents. I've seen that there are issues where there's discussions around, look, but I'm resident in Zambia and all. Yeah, so I think that there's still opportunity for residents, and residency does not immediately, entitle you to enjoy the benefits of citizenship, which are enumerated in Article 42 of the Constitution. But what it does is that there's an option for you to be able to be registered. So you can be a citizen by registration if you've been resident long enough in Zambia. And long enough in the context of registration is if you've consistently resided in Zambia for 10 years, there are provisions of the law that allow you are eligible for registration. But of course, you have to go through the process of actually applying, and the Citizenship Board under the Citizenship Act to assess your application and are able to grant you citizenship. And that would help you, especially for those practitioners who've been here long enough, to change the status as in relation to the registration fees.
Okay. Great. Council, my final question before we get to the comments would be that I know that there's some practitioners who would like to maybe get clarification before they go on to apply or
Yes.
before they fill in any documents.
Yes.
How do they seek such clarification? Do they get directly to you, legal counsel, or your team, or how do they do this?
Yeah, great question. I think that HPCZ has maintained an open door policy, and I think that anybody who works here, I think that the first point of call is probably our customer care lines, which are available, I believe, on our Facebook page and many other platforms. But also, if they wish to, they could approach any member of staff. I think that we are very open in relation to how we respond to matters, and they could be helped in that fashion. But if it really gets to a point where they need official correspondence, they can write through the office of the registrar, and then you need to go through the channels, and they'll get a formal response. Ideally, a response or a query could be sent even through the Facebook page. We do respond and make sure that those issues are clarified.
Great. Council, we're trying to look at the comments section.
Okay,
and
let's do that. Let's do that.
But then my worry, I don't know whether it's a worry or a concern, is that no one is asking about this categorization.
Okay.
Yes, I know maybe someone would have loved to just know, okay, like for each category, you tell them the fees and whatnot, but we can't do that.
Yeah.
We already have posted before. I think we have the fees on our platforms.
Yeah.
But then there's a question that keeps coming.
Mm-hmm.
About, I think I've heard Richard, I think there's another person and another person who are asking, when are you reintroducing Lex?
Oh,
and
I
we've
see.
been answering that it's already been reintroduced, but maybe it should come from legal counsel.
Right.
Lex.
It's a good question. I believe there should be a day when that would be dismantled. But to answer it a bit more basically is that Lex is a phenomenon now that's recognized under the law. And so every applicant will be probably subject to Lex at some point. But what's happening now is that we're developing the guidelines and the framework within which the Lex will be administered. And so anytime from now, I think viewers and those that are stakeholders should expect that Lex will now be fully implemented, and going forward, I think that very soon we'll have it rolled out.
Thank you so much, Council. Unless you have anything more to share with our practitioners, we would call it a day.
Okay, I don't have anything much, but what I would want to say is practitioners and stakeholders alike are welcome to approach us. We are here to serve you, and so whatever queries you may have, this shouldn't be the limit of our interaction. So let's interact and be able to answer your queries to your satisfaction, and then from there we can see how we continue interacting. Those would be my last comments.
Thank you, Council. It's always good to have you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We hope you can join us next week. We've been discussing categorization of Zambian and non-Zambian applicant fees.